Hi, my name is Alyssa Vafai, and I'm a counselor with the Disability Resource Center at Palomar College. And today I'm here to talk to you about empowering your student with a disability. Specifically, we're talking about now that they are in college and may or may not be legally an adult. So the first thing I like to do is just to honor all the hard work that you have done for your student. Many of you have had to fight to advocate for their needs. You have empowered them, you have encouraged them, you have consoled them. You have done so much to help them to grow into the person who they are today. And I just want to say thank you and congratulations for getting them here. And today we're going to focus on a transition of power, so to speak, from you taking the lead to them now taking the lead. Some of this presentation may feel a little bit like tough love, but the intention is not to be tough on anyone. We are wanting to think long term. What are our goals for our students? What are their goals for themselves? Most of the time, what I hear is that they want to live independently. They want to get a job someday. And I don't know about you, but all of the job interviews I've been on, I had to go to by myself. My parents, my guardians were not allowed to be in the room with me. So we want to be preparing our students for, venturing out on their own, at least at some level, because there will be expectations in academics and in careers and in independent living where they will have to be on their own advocating for themselves. So why not start preparing them for that today? The first step is knowing their disability. It may surprise you, but it's not uncommon for a student to be in their welcome appointment with me at Palomar, and they are almost a little surprised that they have a disability. They don't know what it is. They've never heard of it. It's the first time they're seeing their individualized education plan or IEP. They don't understand it. And so it's a little shocking. So I really encourage you, if you're the parent, the legal guardian, the grown-up who has the strongest connection to the student, to help them understand what their disability or disabilities are. Name it, give some examples of what it looks like, define it. If you don't feel comfortable doing this or don't feel you have the skills or knowledge to do this, you can certainly involve support personnel from the high school, the school psychologist, the resource teacher, special education teacher, high school counselor. If they're seeing a therapist, if they have a pediatrician even, these are all excellent qualified professionals who could sit down with you and your student to discuss their disability. I think it's important, and we fall into this trap too, even as disability management counselors. We sometimes focus on the limitations or the weaknesses associated with the disability. And I think it's important to also focus on the strengths. It's never all just weaknesses and limitations. Everybody has some strengths. And it's important to know what those strengths are so that they can help balance out the weaknesses as they go through whatever path they need to take to reach their goals. And you've known them the longest, you know them the best. So you are best qualified to help them see what it is that they're good at too. Impacts. Some students are fairly aware of how their disability impacts them in academics, but it can be important to point out where they may be impacted in social settings as well, because college can be very social, and also in work settings. They may have never had a job before, so we don't want them to be surprised at how their disability might impact them in a work setting. I think it's important when students have a good understanding of their disability, both strengths and weaknesses, and how they can be impacted in various settings. It can be helpful to talk about what they think their career goals are. What do they want to be when they grow up? How do those goals line up with what they now know about their disability? And it can be helpful to give them some real world examples. There are so many successful people out there with a wide range of disabilities. And when I say successful, I don't mean millionaires and billionaires and movie stars. I mean people who have found fulfilling careers, who can live independently, who can support themselves, support their families. These people are everywhere. They're amongst us. 25% of the population statistically is living with one or more disabilities. So there are plenty of real world examples. You can certainly go on the internet. I recommend doing that search with your students because there's a lot of misguided information out there as well, especially in regards to medical conditions and other disabilities. So you just want to be there to help guide those conversations with what you find. Now that they know all about their disability, it's important for them to know their rights. Their rights are different in college than they were in K-12. It's a different set of laws that protect students with disabilities in higher education. And it affects, what we can and can't do for them. The Americans with Disabilities Act, everyone knows for the most part, has to do with access. So making sure facilities and materials are accessible. Section 504, many of you, your students may have had a 504 plan, so you're aware of this. This allows us to provide accommodations for students. Qualified individuals with disabilities cannot be discriminated against. Section 508, which came around a bit later, added on to the Rehabilitation Act. Makes it so that electronic and information technology must be accessible. So this would be like websites, any online materials, forms, documents from professors for classes, they all have to be made accessible. The California Code of Regulations, Title V, it pertains to the California Community Colleges system. So this is additional education codes that require us to reasonably accommodate students and make sure education is accessible to them. This last one here, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, otherwise known as FERPA. You've probably heard of it. In K-12, the parents or legal guardians had the privacy rights to the student's information. When the student turns 18 or starts going to a post-secondary institution of education, whichever comes first, those rights now shift over to the student. And we can no longer share any information with parents or legal guardians unless the student explicitly signs consents for specific information to be shared. So that's for all students, not just students with disabilities. The next step, now they know their rights, they know their disability, it's time for them to start practicing some self-advocacy because this is a big part of going to college is advocating for yourself. And that's going to be a big part of getting a job and being successful at your job, making sure your rights are being honored. So look for opportunities for your student now before they even start college. Do they have a doctor or dentist appointment that they need to attend to soon? Have them call and book the appointment. Did their school call about something? Maybe have them call back to find out what was needed. Do they maybe need to miss a day of class or an exam? Have them reach out to the teacher to explain, and maybe they can just copy you on those communications. Have them take the lead on these things, even if ultimately you do have to step in as the legal guardian to confirm information. Give them small steps. If they're like, I don't know what I do first? So you can just give very detailed steps for them to practice. It's okay if you have to spell it out for them at first. A lot of students are going to get their first job while they're going to community college. They might get a work-study job while they're here. And to get paid, they're going to need a checking account. Maybe they don't have one of those yet. Well, banks make it pretty easy to get a checking account now, all online. You don't even have to go in. So give them the steps. Here's the website. You're going to be starting a job. You're going to need a bank account. You're going to need this information. Here it is. Go to work through this application. And you can certainly be there to just keep an eye out and see if they have questions. Be that safety net. If they want you there, if they want you in on those calls, if they want you there at that first appointment with the DRC or any other department that's serving them at Palomar, that's fine. You can sit in with them, but let them do all the talking. Encourage them to write down their questions before the meeting and have them there and ask them. And you know, if they don't feel they got their answers, ask again. So there's lots of little ways that you can give them small steps to advocate for themselves and yet still be there for them as a safety net. And then praise the smallest successes. Even if it seems small to you, like booking a doctor's appointment. Okay, yeah, we've been doing that for years. We do it for our kids, our spouses, our parents, you know, it's not a big deal to us, but to them, it could be the very first time they are doing something like that for themselves. So praise it, congratulate them on becoming a self-advocate. We want to encourage that behavior every little step of the way. Connecting them to resources. Now, this is something we certainly do in our welcome appointment at the Disability Resource Center, and you may or may not be involved in that appointment depending on your availability and if your student invites you to that appointment. But just know, for your own knowledge, in case you're not in that appointment, that these are some of the most common resources that will be there to support a student early on and throughout, but they're great ones to connect to early on from the beginning in college. One, the Disability Resource Center, that's us. We can help them navigate any disability-related issues. The Tutoring Center on campus, they can provide one-on-one assistance with homework and studying. There's a wide variety of academic support programs depending on the student's eligibility for first generation, low income, veterans. There's a wide range of programs, and we will, if we know more information about the student in that first appointment, we will make a specific recommendation for them as needed. The professors are the best resources because they are the subject matter experts on the classes. They know their course better than anyone else. So if your student has course specific questions about assignments or content, encourage them to reach out for help with the professors directly. Student life and leadership, getting involved with peers is a great way to self-navigate through college. Joining and starting clubs, getting involved with student government is a big one. And then also the Student Life and Leadership runs the Hub, which connects students to basic needs resources and other community resources. And then lastly, when I say community resources here, I'm meaning specific to disability needs. So like the California Department of Rehabilitation can provide some financial support. San Diego Regional Center, I know they often can connect students to third-party agencies if they need like a student aid in the classroom. Certainly if your student is seeing a therapist or a doctor for therapy or medication, you would want that to continue throughout their time in community college. Simply because they turn 18, that doesn't necessarily mean they've grown out of certain disabilities. They often need that continued disability management, medical management throughout the time that they're in school. Taking ownership is a metaphor I like to use for taking responsibility for one's own future, be it education, a career, a talent, hobby, helping your student to envision their degree, their career goal as something that is theirs and no one else's might help them grasp the concept of owning their future. And what do we do when we own something? We have to maintain it so it doesn't fall apart, right? So it's now your responsibility to maintain those things. So this is something you would be saying to the student. It's now your responsibility. You have to maintain it. No one else is going to do this for you because you are the owner now. And maintaining the things you own makes it last longer. With education, maintenance can look like checking in with the professors to make sure you're on target to pass the class, checking in to make sure you're understanding the concepts being taught in class, asking for help when you're struggling, either from the professor or from the tutoring center. These are ways to maintain what you are learning during the semester. Investments. The biggest investment in college is time. And I often hear from students, oh, I didn't think this class would take up so much of my time. I don't have enough time for school and my job and my family and friends. And, that's understandable, but education and preparing for a career path takes a huge investment of time. So it's important for students to learn to prioritize where and when they will invest their time. Maybe now isn't the time for school for their education, and that's okay. But if it truly is their top priority, then that is where the bulk of their time is going to need to go. And last, improvements. I often have students B, C average, which is fine. That's totally acceptable. B and C average students, however, often are telling me about their goals to go to a University of California, UC school to transfer. And we have to have a difficult conversation about necessary improvements upon their academic efforts should they wish to be eligible to go to a dream school like Berkeley or UCLA. Palomar students have to realize that they're not just competing with other college students throughout California to get into CSU and UC schools. They are competing on a global scale. California universities are some of the most desirable schools in the world. And they'll be wanting, so in addition to improving their academic transcript, getting those B and C averages up to A averages, they'll want to be adding extracurriculars, such as joining the school newspaper, joining student government, having special projects, volunteer work, things like this. So I'm not saying you need this for every school, every program, but sometimes improvements, serious improvements are required if you want to get into some more impacted specialized programs in the state of California. And the last one, keeping a file. Some students are not used to keeping records. So whether it's a physical file or a digital file, it can be helpful to students to have all of their disability and school paperwork documents in the same place. Taking notes is always encouraged, but for some students, due to impact of disability, taking notes can be challenging. So if you are present for those meetings, you may want to take notes on their behalf, make sure those notes are added to the file so they can refer to them at any time. And then making sure the file is accessible to the student so they know where it is, it's in an accessible format for them if it's digital. This can help them with their practice of self-advocacy. They can find phone numbers to call for appointments on their own. They can find email addresses for important contacts, etc. So it can be really helpful for them if you kind of start this file record keeping process for them. And that's it for today. Hopefully I gave you some tips for how to make this transition smoother, helping your student become a self-advocate and really take ownership for their education and disability management in college. And we are the Disability Resource Center. We look forward to working with you in the fall. Thank you and have a good day.